So one of the things that I've talked about a lot with you and with others is the ability for big banks and hedge funds, sovereign wealth funds to suppress the price of gold. And it's easy for me to say that. And I thought about it and I thought, it's easy for me to say this, but are people really understanding what I'm saying? So I asked our trader, our head trader, who hedges all of our positions, how much money does it cost? What is involved in securing a 100-ounce gold contract? And he said to me last week that a 100-ounce gold futures contract controlled at the time $188,000 worth of gold. Okay. And in order to buy a contract or sell a contract, either go long or short, all we needed in our margin account was $6,900. Now that $6,900 doesn't go to buy the contract. It's in our margin account. And so if the price goes up, we don't have any problem. If it goes down, we need to add more money to our margin account. Imagine if you're a bank like Bank of America and you put $1 billion in your margin account. Look at the perception of reality that you can create with a contract that has 27 times leverage. 27 times leverage right now is what you are able to control. Every dollar that you put into a COMEX contract controls $27 worth of gold. This is how they suppress the paper price and at the same time accumulate the physical. Let me show you what I mean by that. Last week on January 11th, in one day, one trader bought 1,223 gold contracts at spot. Contracts of spot gold, they're called. And what that means within a delivery month is that they're buying them immediately for delivery. 1,223 contracts times 100 ounces of gold is $230 million. Who's got that kind of bread? Few days later, on Monday, which would have been maybe the 16th, I think, $96 million worth of gold were bought on another 505 contracts at spot. So you have, in essence, $320 million worth of gold was bought for, paid for, and delivered off the exchange. Wow. Who's got that bread? So if you look at the total amount of physical gold and silver held in all of the depositories, the ETFs and the mutual funds, as the close of business last Friday, in 1 week, coming out of all of these ETFs and exchanges, 553,000 ounces of gold were removed and 9,489,000 ounces of silver were taken out as well. Taken out, removed off the exchanges. Where's it going? Do you think there's any coincidence that a country like India imported 300 million ounces? Do you think there's any coincidence that China has admitted to buying 100 metric tons over the last 3 months? Where's it all going? It's going that way. And when it leaves these exchanges, it ain't ever coming back.
Right.
So those are the three things that I wanted to mention, because price isn't always what it seems. Behind the scenes, you got some of the biggest banks in the world saying gold is good. You got Saudi Arabia saying, we're going to take other currencies other than the dollar, which is has massive ramifications for everything valued in dollars. And at the same time, as it's really muted and quiet on the gold and silver front to the public, one trader has enough bread to take $320 million worth of gold off of the COMEX market like that. What does it mean? It means that price is not really, it's the greatest tool of misdirection, as we talk about. And there's a whole lot more to the story than you will gather from just looking at the cover of the book. So those would be the really pressing things. And we could talk about Janet Yellen saying we have to do extraordinary things to keep the government going, which is a sad state of affairs. We could talk about the FDIC, which is really interesting also. Let's remind me to talk about the FDIC after I'll let you speak, because you're sitting there so patiently and quietly. But I will say this, that even on weeks where not a lot happens, a lot happens. In the years before, I mean, stuff like this would happen once every 6 months. Right. And now they're happening once every 6 seconds. So Lot to talk about, lot going on, and I think it's going to be emblematic of what we see moving forward this year.
Yeah. I actually just sent David Morgan this article, scientists coming out and saying, urging people, urging the public that we have to cut back on silver. We don't have enough. And they went into the numbers, and stuff like that would come out, like you said, once every 6 months. And now every single day you hear a mining company, or I think it was like investing.com, or they're all coming out and saying, silver, we need it so much, and how critical, this crucial role that it plays. And it's like, this is something that would never happen a couple of years ago. I was making daily videos about it, but I feel like now people are finally getting the picture, the full picture, the aftermath, and even with investors, the aftermath. Yeah, we get a pretty penny, but at what cost? But reverting back to gold, I always called silver gold on steroids, right?
I
It's a
agree.
more dramatic version, higher highs and lower lows. It's riskier, but gold is still a great invest. You can fit $100,000 worth of gold in a shoebox. You can't do that with silver. There's definitely a lot of benefits to gold, and I think gold is a direction you go more for preserving your wealth. And if you are someone that is more opportunistic, silver does come in play. I don't really, I'm not one to say, gold is bad, or that you should always buy silver over gold. I own gold. One of actually my biggest goals this year is to accumulate more gold. And before it was strictly silver. So, when I'm talking to people, they always ask, what is the ratio? Is it every 100 ounces of silver, 1 ounce of gold? It really doesn't matter, whatever you prefer. But I definitely think gold has its place, especially if you are someone who's putting money into this. 100,000 ounces or $100,000 worth of silver is a lot of storage space.
Yeah, well, you could put $100,000 worth of gold in your two front hands. You're talking
Right,
50 ounces of gold, 52
right.
ounces. They come in tubes of 20. One tube and one tube here is almost 80 grand. So you have two tubes in each hand. You got 150,
Yeah,
160,000 in your hand. Uh, the equivalent in silver, you're talking roughly 15 mint boxes at 42
right.
pounds each. So you're talking, a lot of weight, six, seven
Yeah,
hundred pounds for the same amount that you can hold in your hands. And it is gold on steroids. And I think
yeah,
there is an awful lot to be said for silver. And when you talk about supply, the London Metals Exchange just came out and said if we see the type of demand and deliveries that we saw in 2020 through 2022, there won't be any silver left on the LME in 2023. So the stock, according to the article that you're talking about, and the U.S. Geological Survey Group, it's a branch of the U.S. government, a few years ago came out and said silver would be the first item struck from the periodic table of elements. There
yep.
was another article I saw just the other day that said that by the year 2000 and I want to say 2050, that
Isn't it?
just the solar panels alone would take all of the silver known to exist. And so when you talk about a depleted asset, which for 5,000 years had a geological ratio of 16 to 1, it's now 7 to 1, and expansion in uses, um, not just monetarily, of course, but industrially. Yeah, silver is a depleted asset. And maybe this is why they've gone to such great lengths to mute the price rise. And at the same time, that is being betrayed by the drawdowns in physical supply. I want to hammer this home. I've talked about it on a few interviews lately. I want people to understand that buying contracts and taking delivery, whether it be from the LME or the COMEX, is wholly sophisticated. It's not like calling me up or another company and buying metal here retail. To take possession of a COMEX contract, to take delivery of it, not only is it difficult to do, but where do you put it? Where do you put 1,000 ounce silver bars? And when the amount of that's just one contract, when you see, millions of ounces being delivered, where's it going? It loses all of its industrial liquidity once it leaves the COMEX ecosystem. So once it's shipped out, it ain't ever coming back. It's a
Right.
one-way street. The people that are able to take delivery are very sophisticated, very wealthy, and probably closest to the information. In other words, on one hand, the price says, keep going, it's crap. Who wants it? On the other hand, the most sophisticated, think about that, sophisticated and well-funded people in the world are draining the supply from the most difficult places to pull it from. Right? It's one thing if you're a Keith Neumeyer and you're the CEO of First Majestic, taking things in and out of Comex probably is no big deal. It's another thing if you're an average Joe or Jane. Good luck trying to do that.
Yeah.
It's not easy. And so you're talking people that are high up on the sophistication level, high up on the information level, and very, very wealthy.
Yeah.
So that should tell you these are the people that always lead the way. Always.
Jim Rogers, for one.
Yes.
Jim Rogers been coming out a lot lately.
They all lead the way. So that's one of the things that I hope people understand. And it's difficult when your eyes lie to you.
Yeah.
When your eyes lie to you, but your gut tells you something else. And it's hard to reconcile that. But I think your eyes are lying to you when you look at the price, unless you dig and look at what's coming off of the exchanges. If price was an indication of value, then who's buying all of the big bars? Who's taking possession of all of this? And when you realize that they're being bled down to levels that no one's really ever seen before, and yet you and I and the people who listen to this show are the pimple on the elephant's ass in terms of understanding of what's happening. What happens when everyone understands it? Realizing that there's virtually no allocation to the mainstream in metals. And yet, when you take a look objectively at silver, right? Suspend the fact that I own a metals company. It's depleting in nature from 16 to 1 for all of time to 7 to 1. It's priced at, for 200 years, the average was 42 to 1. Now it's roughly 80 to 1. It has a massive expansion in industrial uses and a renaissance in monetary demand. It ticks every single box as a great investment. So, I think sometimes you have to trust your gut, have strong fingertips, hang on, and know that you're right, even though people around you will make you feel like you're not. Yeah. I think 2023 will be a year where us metal people are going to, and it's inappropriate for me to say vindicated, but we will be vindicated. I think we will be proven correct. And it's not something that I think most of us will take pride in.
Right.
In being correct in an environment, perhaps when everyone around us is suffering.
Yeah, that's
and that's the bad part about it.
Yeah. And even going back to the gold to silver ratio, it used to be 2.5 parts silver equals 1 part gold, like 2.5 back in like ancient biblical times. Because back then they thought silver was literally magical because silver responds to other elements like no other metal does, and it has antimicrobial properties. It purifies water. Drop silver in water, purifies it. Drop it in milk, it keeps the milk fresh longer. They thought it was, and it is. I mean, silver's not like anything, the most highly conductive metal for thermal conductivity, electricity. And it wasn't till 1930. It was 16 to 1 for thousands of years. 1930, FDR gets in office, changes it from 16 to 1 to 75 to 1 in 1930. Single-handedly just manipulated. It's a man-made ratio, and it will go back down. Now, I don't know if it's going to be 8 to 1 or 4 to 1 or 16 to 1, but regardless, we know that ratio is extremely out of whack, and it will go back down. It's funny that people need to see the price go up for them to feel validated as it's green, we have to get in before the curve, just like Bitcoin. I was telling people to buy Bitcoin at $1,200. They called me crazy, but then they're all buying it at $20,000, and that's when I'm selling it. And it's crazy that people, I always tell people, when most people are buying, you should be selling. When most people are selling, you should be buying. Just do the exact opposite of everyone, because we know we know. We see past the price, and a lot of people, they look at the price. That's gambling. Investors make strategic decisions based off information. We take that information, tweak the odds in our favor, while gamblers have the odds highly against them. And if you look at the information, it's blatantly obvious, regardless of the price. And I hate that I still have doubters on my channel. You know, like this one guy said, silver isn't money. It just said silver isn't money. I said silver's been money before our dollars were money, and the only reason that a dollar was considered money is so you didn't have to exchange the metal, and then we got rid of the metal, and now we have these worthless pieces of paper. Like, how could you say that silver isn't money? It's God's money. So is gold. And it's funny that and these are the type of people that I feel bad for, because if you don't know that you don't know, it's okay. Like you know, the people that are walking around oblivious of the how beneficial gold and silver are, those people, you know, they didn't even have a chance to make the decision. But the people that know about gold and silver and still don't, those are the ones that are going to be kicking themselves in the butt. Like the people that knew about Bitcoin back when it was, you know, $5 that didn't jump on it. Those are the ones that probably feel the worst, you know. But yeah, just it's crazy.
You know, I talk to a lot of people. I do a lot of interviews, and you seem to have as good of a grasp of what's happening and the history as anyone I talk to. And you've done as much for the industry as anybody out there. You've been doing this for years. And, you know, people come on, there's always going to be people who come on and listen to a silver channel and then give you shit. Silver's not money. Well, I mean, do a little research, you'll find that silver truly is money, going all the way back to biblical times, and fits the definition of money. Look at Aristotle's I think there's six classifications for what defines money. Now, I don't remember them all, but you'll see that the dollars that we call money, or actually currency, does not fit the definition of what money really is.
Yeah.
Gold and silver do. Gold and silver are money and have been money for most of human civilization. It's just a recent phenomenon when the central banks figured out a way to keep gold and silver out of the monetary picture to enrich them. Yeah. But everything goes full circle. And I think we are at the end of the era where, you know, bankers do and politicians do what they have done since Roman times. They screw the pooch. They ruin a good thing by destroying the value of the currency. And I think this is why the full circle part is you see all of these countries accumulating gold. You know, like when you look at the Eastern European countries that are accumulating gold, Turkey and Hungary and Poland.
Didn't Russia last week just come out of nowhere? I think I remember seeing an article where they're like, Russia came out of sideline of them and just bought a whole bunch of gold recently.
Not only did they buy a whole bunch of gold, they just issued in conjunction with China, a new gold-backed digital asset, a digital convertible digital coin.
So is that it's on the block? Yeah. Okay. Stable coin. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
And they're pegging it to gold. So, but these countries, many of them that are either in the European Union or have trade arrangements with the European Union, they all have their own currency. They don't trade the euro. They're all massively buying gold. They're going to break free and move away from this system, which is dying. And you can see by the drive to accumulate commodities that this is a chess game, and the most sophisticated money in the world is positioning themselves on the board. And it's just a matter of time.